Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is just eat meat, and that's what you should do. But if you're hiking or road tripping or stuck at work and you want something nutritious that is just meat, fat, and possibly salt, if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. I like this product not only because it is pure meat, but also because I really want the carnivore market to thrive as well. The more we support meat only products, the more people will make meat only products, and this will bring this into the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to check out, then take a look and use my discount code HTC to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the How to Carnivore podcast and YouTube series. We're joined again by Dr. Anthony Chafee, the Plant-Free MD. Welcome, Dr. Chafee.
All right, thank you. Good to see you.
You too. And today we've got a special guest, Dr. Kiltz, who is a fertility specialist from the States and runs the third biggest fertility clinic, I believe, in the whole of America, and is a carnivore and an absolute expert. So welcome, Dr. Kiltz.
Oh, thank you very much. I've always inspired by what you guys are sharing, and we need inspiration every day. And I'm not sure I'm the third, but I'm in the top 10 of American IVF centers for sure.
Still pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
So the sort of thought behind this episode is that we'd talk about fertility and we'd create a guide for anybody who's looking to fall pregnant, is pregnant, or has a newborn. So, Dr. Kiltz, do you want to kick it off with your philosophy around the ideal scenario for fertility?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to share, by the way. I really appreciate it. And for all of us, fertility is critical, whether you're trying to get pregnant personally, a family member, a friend, or just our community. That's so important for you to gain the knowledge of a healthy lifestyle. But as a fertility specialist, and I do all the standard medical treatments for those that are suffering from fertility issues, but I kind of fell upon nutrition about 15, 20 years ago and started off in the paleo world when many of my patients were getting pregnant on paleo diets. And I was kind of talking about meditation and prayer and positivity, and that helped. But paleo was like, wow, what is this stuff? And I started reading about paleo, and then I tripped over keto, and then I find carnivore. And I kind of focused on the understanding that inflammation is the cause of all disease, and being infertile, not getting pregnant, miscarrying, or anything else like a failure to have a vaginal delivery or prematurity or chromosomal or genetic disorders, autism, maternal morbidity, mortality. All these things are related, what I'm finding, to inflammation. And it turns out that our diet is a deadly diet that is causing all of these problems. And when I kind of found this, I figured, well, what's my job as a doctor? I've got to share these ideas with the world so that they can take control of their own health and wellness. And keto carnivore, to me, is one of the best ways to reduce inflammation, increase your fertility, and solve really the most important thing in life, which is reproduction, because that's what we're all doing. Everything we do is for reproduction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, at a biological level, that's the meaning of life, and I think at sort of a meaning level, that provides a lot of meaning in people's lives as well. Having family, having kids, and having grandkids. You talk to a lot of people on their deathbed. You ask them, what, any regrets, what you do, and it's always, I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I spent more time with my kids. I wish I didn't work as much. I wish I spent more time with people. And so, in a biological and spiritual sense, that is a very good working meaning of life. And so obviously it's very, very important to almost all of us. Some people maybe not so much.
Well, if you look around the world, the incidence of infertility is growing. The family sizes are shrinking. Many people are not connecting with the partner. They're not having babies, either they say intentionally, but I think the intention is misinformed and misguided, because I think as women reach their late 30s, 40s, and even 50s and haven't had a child, they look back and see, gee, what happened? I think because the propaganda of the world is, oh, you got to wait to have a baby. But in fact, our reproductive potentials are best in our teens and early 20s. And so the waiting part exposes us to more inflammatory particles, which reduce our fertility, reduce sperm counts, sperm quality, and function, reduce, again, egg quality, egg function, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, metabolic disorders, endometriosis, uterine fibroids, are all part of that. But it's male and female sides that are damaged by the postponement of childbearing. And then because of a plant-based diet, tremendous amount of sugars damage the reproductive organs directly, along with the chemicals. By the way, plants make estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, which are the birth control pill and the abortion pill, which suppresses male and female reproductive potential also. And then there's the lectins, oxalates, phytates, which embed in our reproductive organs, cause chronic inflammation, again, and damage the sperm, eggs, and embryos in the implantation environments. This is really the biggest cause. But our plant-based diet, our lifestyle, waiting is detrimental to our reproductive function. And there's a really great book called Why Beautiful People Have More Daughters. It's a social, cultural, sociology book, but essentially everything we do, blogging, being a doctor, or whatever it is, it's our feathers, it's our showing off our colors so that we can attract a mate, we can reproduce, which is, again, the primary reason for all organisms.
Yeah, definitely. There was, speaking about, plants sort of disrupting things, certainly, with high insulin, and I understand that's implicated in PCOS and blocking conversion of testosterone into estrogen. And I just remember a story that I learned in history class I was taking years ago. It was about like the origin of the heart shape. I mean, that doesn't look like the organ of the heart. And what the thought is that actually was the shape of a seed pod that they was used in ancient Rome as birth control agent. And people would just take this stuff as birth control. And It was so popular that it was just ubiquitous. It was actually on the coinage. And so they found that it's on like the old Roman coins, this sort of heart-shaped seed pod. And so, and they actually like ate the stuff to extinction. They don't think that it exists anymore because they just used it all up. And that can just goes to show you, what can happen and disrupt your normal workings. I mean, that's in the best interest of the plant itself. I mean, I understand that there's even some different like pesticides and things that the plants use when, or that we spray on them that disrupt insects' reproductive cycle as well, and then they can die or disrupt that as well. But that sort of brings me to a question that I had, which was, there's mixed opinions and thoughts, and I've seen mixed reports in the literature about vegans, vegetarians, people plant-based sort of eaters, and sperm count, motility count. I found papers that have said both basically, and obviously it says improved or reduced, but usually it's in comparison to what? Generally in comparison to the average population, which is eating a plant-based processed food garbage diet, and so maybe a whole food plant-based diet is better than that. But I don't know, in your experience, have you come across anything that would elucidate that?
Well, you mentioned about the placebo and the nocebo. And so anything we do that we ascribe to the thing as the cause of the outcome, is always questionable, in my opinion. But you mentioned about the seeds and the plants. I mean, we've been in the medicinal plant world for thousands of years, and the plants are the poisons, or they're the pills that heal us, right? It's medicine. We've been searching for plants as medicine, and the search of the Spice Islands and the route to the east was about the pharmaceutical industry, essentially, and the plants that will cure us or kill us, essentially. But we do. I mean, there's so much talk about using herbs and essential oils to heal your fertility, and it is likely that you may be using some anti-inflammatory properties of these plants that may help reduce the inflammation that's causing the damage to the sperm, the egg, the embryo, or the implantation environment. So I don't know if it's the leading to the question, but there is, I don't know what you know about mannose.
Mannose,
so
not sure.
mannose is a monosaccharide. It's another monosaccharide like glucose, galactose, mannose, sucrose. So I mean, they're mono and disaccharides and polysaccharides. These saccharides damage something in our body that causes damage to the egg, sperm, embryos, and we call it infertility. But polycystic ovarian syndrome, and you alluded to the hyperinsulinemia, but I believe the hyperinsulinemia is not the cause, it's the hyperglycemia, whether it's glucose, galactose, mannose. And there was a recent paper, and I'll share it with you, it was in my talk that I gave at KetoCon, that basically high mannose levels are associated with PCOS. So it's sugars. It's again, plant sugars are the cause of most of our disease because they damage the glycocalyx. And the glycocalyx, again, is the barcode of every cell of our body, every receptor of our body. And so, what causes bad sperm, bad eggs, bad embryos, or bad ovulation, which we espouse to polycystic ovarian syndrome, is likely still related to a plant glycan, a plant sugar, which causes glycation, which we call glycation end products. And yet the science sometimes tries to give us a story that we're so focused on, we can't see what's going on over here. And insulin is only responding to a plant-based diet and a high protein, low fat diet, if you think about it, right? And so I definitely think that all of our reproductive dysfunction, including reduced libido, reduced orgasms, reduced ability to have an erection, right? Any dysfunction is all related to the damage the plants are causing us at some receptor level in our body. If you think about it, and I think this is what you're alluding to, is the plants contain small amounts of estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. So if I give you a little bit of that, like a birth control pill, an abortion pill, am I going to suppress your reproduction? Of course I am, right? And so then we measure your hormone levels and we say, gee, your testosterone is low, you need testosterone. Then we give you testosterone, we make you feel better and get an erection. At the same time, we suppress your sperm function. When in fact, if we simply remove the plants, which are the predators, as you've elucidated to for so long, we will cure our reproductive dysfunction. So I have so many people going carnivore, fatty meat, eliminating plants, even in their mid to late 40s and getting pregnant.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is quite amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the thing too. As far as hormone disruptors, obviously there are some of these phytoestrogens, phytotestosterones, progesterones. Are there other things apart from the food that we eat that's going to disrupt that you counsel people to stay away from generally for optimal reproductive health?
Well, excessive exercise, I think, is not good for us because it heats up are the core, and heat is inflammatory in itself, and friction is inflammatory. So men and women, they're cooking their sperm, they're cooking their eggs, which I think is something that I think you got to just slow it down. Yoga, meditation, cold water therapy, some lifting if you want, but minimize it. Alcohol, deadly for our reproductive system. So I recommend removing alcohol from your diet, and certainly smoking, caffeine. These are all, marijuana, coffee, and teas of any significance or frequency are not good for anyone in the reproductive realm. And coffee might have caffeine, you get decaf, but and I think you've said this many times, there are hundreds of other chemicals in coffee and teas that we don't even know what they do. And those are the things, it's water, mineral water, spring water that's sat on the earth, right? And not been processed through filtration and remove the natural minerals and vitamins that I think are critical. And things like fiber, if you just say people take fiber supplements, fiber is deadly for us because it ferments in the gut, and fermentation makes heat, alcohol, aldehydes, and methane gas. And most fiber sits in the colon, which sits right on top of the ovaries, tubes, and uterus. And so fermentation is an exothermic reaction. It makes heat. So you're heating up your ovaries, your prostate and testicles, which are another cause of disease, which again, did you get your fiber today? Did you get your fiber supplement? How important it is. Which unfortunately, and again, I suffered for 55 years of bowel bleeding, arthritis, kidney stones, migraines, anxiety, depression, that finally at 55, I went carnivore, and bingo, all got better. I've never felt better in my life. No more kidney stones, no more bowel bleeding, no more hemorrhoids, no more constipation. And so that's another one, the fiber part of it. Let's see. I always say there are 5 causes of all disease. Plant sugars, not just glucose, plant sugars, plant chemicals, plant antigens, lectins, oxalates, phytates, gluten, latex, fermentation of plants in the gut via sugars, and then excessive exercise. And so, if you sort of, that's the sort of the simple concepts, which again, since we're so brainwashed in the medical community that fruit, fiber, vegetables, seeds, and nuts are so healthy for us, it's when I talk about it, I'm sure you talk about it to your colleagues, they go like, huh? And I had a 35-year young patient yesterday that has all the bowel symptoms, and she's infertile and miscarriages. She's already spent a ton of money on IVF and failed. And when I suggested keto, carnivore, and I always throw keto in there, she's like, oh, I can never do that. And finally she said, oh, I can never do that. And I asked, well, what would you do? Well, not everything. And then finally she said, well, I would do anything to have a baby, because that is the truth. We do anything to have a baby because that is that's the real trophy of all humanity in life.
Yeah. So you ended up bringing her around, and she's going to try.
Well, she said, I want the drugs.
Right. Yeah.
So the drugs are intravenous immunoglobulins, Humira, they're the Plaquenil, Prograf, Neupogen, human growth hormone. These are the drugs, and they cost thousands of dollars, and there's no guarantee they're going to work. So, I mentioned it enough, and I try not to overwhelm them, but I can be overwhelming sometimes. But I always tell my vegans, my vegetarians, my Mediterraneans, I tell everyone, listen, I'm here to help you however you want, wherever you're at. As you can do keto as a vegan vegetarian in the Mediterranean, and you can fast, do one meal a day. That'll help. But I'm hopeful that she'll come around, but I still work in the standard medical field like you, where we dissect and we give drugs and they have a lot of side effects. And for her, she's 35, open tubes, regular cycles, a little bit of sperm abnormalities, but nothing significant. They have a huge chance of conceiving and delivering naturally by going keto carnivore, for sure.
Yeah. Well, hopefully she comes around anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she has a great. I mean, not everyone does my dietary recommendations, and they still get pregnant. But if we can inspire people to make the changes, and it's sharing the story and sharing the story and sharing the story, and then the examples that show up, that really is the thing that I think is the most important that we do.
Dr. Kiltz, when you're recommending carnivore, are you saying equal parts protein and fat? Are you saying high protein, high fat? What's the mix that you recommend?
Well, the focus seems to be on protein, and I think that's wrong. I think we need to focus on fat, because fat is the fuel for the human body, not glucose. And fat suppresses inflammation when it's eaten. And so I typically recommend a 1-to-1 fat to protein. You know, that's a hard one, I think, for most people to get, and it's hard for most people to do. And by the way, I got a sample of the carnivore bar, the fat and meat, and we were flying, Grant and I were flying home on Sunday from it, and we were just, this is all we can eat. We're just loving it. But if you can make, again, pemmican is essentially about a 1-to-1. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's rendered fat. Yeah, by weight. Yeah, so it's like
by
rendered
weight.
tallow and
right on. Right.
And also,
I don't use
dried
calories.
Meat,
I don't use calories because I don't know what a calorie is. But what were we going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say pemmican. So it's dried meat. So you dry all the water, and then once it's dried, then you mix in 50-50 tallow and dried ground up beef. So I don't know exactly how that works out with the proportions on protein to fat grams anyway.
Yeah, again, it's easier to kind of proportion it by what we see. I mean, for thousands of millions of years, no one was putting on a scale or measuring their macros. But I say a 1-to-1 is the best. Focus on bacon, eggs, butter, beef, and salt. Work to do one meal a day. That's one of the most important things we can do to reduce the sugar flow in the bloodstream, to really get it down low and reduce inflammation.
I'm also curious about birth control. Do you get a lot of people who are coming to you who have maybe just stopped birth control, and what sort of results, positive or negative, have you found?
Well, most of my clients have stopped birth control pill 1, 2, 3, or 4 years ago or longer.
Okay.
They've used it for 10 or 20 years, which I think is, the birth control pill is not a healthy product, in my opinion. Many women die from blood clots and strokes from the pill. And I believe we use the birth control pill or any birth control as sort of a signal, have as much sex with as many people as you want, which is not good for humanity. You must be very discerning in your choices. In my opinion, we've created an environment of an amusement park rather than a temple. But I can't say it's directly the birth control pills, the cause, or the lifestyle we live because of it that may be the cause, or both. It's likely both in some way, because taking the birth control pill increases platelet aggregation, blood clots, and stroke. So it's got to be both, in my opinion. So I don't recommend it. I don't use it in my practice. I would rather use estrase and other forms of progesterone in order to help some cyclicity for people, in order to time and treatment for either a frozen transfer or something like that. but I don't use it in my practice because I don't think it's good for us.
Yeah. So I've seen a couple of your videos, or like some of your shorts, where you talk about one of the best, or a very good thing to help female fertility is like really increasing the amount of fat, increasing the amount of butter. Like it's like eating more butter. Would that be? Would you give similar tips like for men and women? Let's say because obviously, as you say, there's a male side of fertility problems and the female side of fertility problems. What are some of the tips that you give people for the man and the woman to try to conceive naturally?
Well, I really give the same to both because the
Mhm.
causes are the same to both.
Yeah.
We just relate them to different organ systems. I think of it like a car. The same things cause the brakes to go, the electrical system to go, the carburetor to go. It's heat, it's inflammation, it's particles of the environment that do it. More miles, the less length you're going to live. But it's the real simplicity of it is high fat, low to no carbs, work to fast and eat one meal a day to reduce the inflammation. And by eating a stick of butter a day. Now, some people can't tolerate butter as well because it does have some proteins and some sugars that can be antigenic, which cause inflammation. But if you get some really good good butter, good cream, but I think tallow, lard, and ghee are a little bit better. And ghee is a little bit better because you've hopefully removed the sugars and the amino acids as much as you can. But that's really the simplest part to this. I always start with have faith. Belief in the thing you wish as if it is the best way to live in life rather than always worrying. And that's kind of where I started off with the law of attraction, or the positivity and The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And that's how I got into Jack Canfield and his stuff, which I've learned is so important. I read the Bible or read biblical quotes of positivity. So if you can see what you want as if it is, that helps men and women. Functional sperm, functional eggs, an embryo, but all you need to do is see the outcome you wish, which is a baby. And then carnivore is the very best. But if you're in the keto world, of vegan, vegetarian, and Mediterranean, up the fat. Half of your volume or mass should come from fat. The rest of it, protein and carbs or plants, if you're in the vegan world. Now, as a vegetarian, cream, eggs, butter, and cheese, fatty, then you don't even need to eat the plant at all if you are up to eating the eggs and the butter and the cheese. And then that one meal a day. And again, we reduce the inflammation in the guy, improves his vascular flow to his testicles. Oxygen is delivered better. Carbon dioxide is removed along with other of the fat oxidative particles from just burning fat are removed. And so, and the glycocalyx, and I know you've talked about it, we've talked about it a little bit. You want to keep the glycocalyx as strong as possible in order to reduce inflammation. Sperm gets better, their erection gets better. And then the same thing on the female side, reduce inflammation and enhance the egg's ovulation and then the environment by going carnivore or ketovore with high fat, low amino acids, low proteins. And, my sense is, and I don't know how much fasting you've done and still maintain your muscle mass, that our need for proteins is probably a lot less than we think, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I eat a surprisingly little amount for my size. I tell people like maybe like 2 pounds of meat or something like that. When I'm sedentary, when I'm working out a lot more, I'll eat probably twice that. But I talked to some women that are like half my size, and like, I eat like 4 or 5 pounds a day and all these sorts of things. And I think they're coming from a a deficiency point, and their bodies are trying to recover and heal and put on more healthy tissue and mass. Whereas my body's pretty happy in its steady state, and I just maintain it pretty well. But yeah, it's surprisingly little to maintain my muscle mass.
I always wonder, how much did we eat 50, 100,000 years ago, and how frequently did we eat? We really don't know that answer very well. And my bet is, for any of us to just go out and start hunting and finding food is not an easy feat. We'd be really hard pressed to do that. So my sense is, I remember I broke a leg. I went 3 months in a cast. My leg came out looking like my arm, size wise.
Yeah.
And because it was sedentary. But I wasn't exercising, and all my other muscles, stayed. I was pretty much confined to a recliner for like a month because I was in so much pain and couldn't move. And then I figured out, I put a belt around myself, and the belt elevated the cast, full length cast, for like 3 months. And I moved, but I didn't exercise, and my muscles stayed pretty strong. But my leg was like nothing.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, I had the same thing when I broke my leg. I didn't have a full leg cast, but I was non-weight bearing for almost 5 months because I just destroyed my deltoid ligament in my ankle, and had to get that reconstructed, and then like unstable fracture of the fibula. And so got it all plated and reconstructed and everything like that. But I was absolutely, my leg was trashed. And I remember seeing it. I would take my foot, when I got the cast off, I got it out of the boot. It was like my arm. And I was like, that's not my leg. That's not my leg. And I had very big legs at the time. I was playing a lot of rugby all the time, and I was carnivore at the time. And my legs were massive. They were like tree trunks, and then all of a sudden I've got just one tree trunk, and then this one, and and it's just like alien limb syndrome. I was like, that's not my leg. That's not my leg. Get it the hell away from me. Yeah, and that took a long time to come back.
It took me a while also, but again, the protein needs, proteins break down to amino acids. Amino acids go to the liver, and via insulin, they're converted mostly to fat. And the fat cells contain amino acids, proteins, and sugars. And I wonder, and if you look at those animals that hibernate and gestate, they lose fat. They don't lose protein. They don't lose muscle mass. So my bet is the fat cell is actually the most important cell in our body, which contains the fuel for the mitochondria. It contains the building blocks, amino acids and simple sugars, which are critical for reproduction. And that's why I think fasting is really important. Dr. Bright and I had a little bit of we didn't agree completely on women and fasting. I still think women fasting is critical and important, and can heal their damaged ovaries, tubes, uterus, and the hypothalamus pituitary axis, which is critical for normal ovulation and pregnancy support.
Okay. So when would you add in fasting in that context? Like, is it to do with cycle, or just every now and then, or just intermittent fasting is enough, or do you need periods of time to come off food entirely?
Well, hyperemesis, which is a condition where women have severe nausea and vomiting, typically in the first trimester, which is very common. A woman says, suddenly food aversion, and they're like, I must be pregnant, or maybe I'm pregnant, or they don't know. And so I think there's a biological reason to say, don't eat the food because it may be toxic for my baby that's trying to implant. So I believe the first trimester is one of the most important times to to fast. And it may be the luteal phase, so the post-ovulatory, so maybe the last quarter of the cycle may be a good time. Again, by fasting, you reduce your sugar levels and the plant toxins that are in your body circulating because you're eating 3 to 6 meals a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say, and then the first trimester, I see patients who are like, I've terrible nausea and vomiting, and they're eating crackers, which are, and they're eating 6 meals a day in order to get their metabolism moving or feed their baby, which ultimately I think, again, mannose, glucose, galactose, fucose, xylose, N-acetylglucosamine, N-acetylgalactosamine are common sugars that can be damaging in excessive amounts. And that's why fasting is so important, to get rid of the plants. And I tell women to have a butter, but even just, a cold frozen butter, put in your mouth, let it melt, and you will get it down there. And that will provide what you want, but not what you need. And then, again, my bet is there are many times where we might be sick longer in pregnancy, and since we're supposed to carry a certain amount of fat, 26 to 28% fat for women, in order to be potentially the fittest, then you have plenty of fat to provide the fuel and the building blocks for your baby, for you to survive and deliver a healthy baby.
Yeah. And so do you find that there's a benefit to fasting on top of carnivore, on top of, you're already not eating the plants, you're already not eating carbohydrates, you're already in that non-insulin driven state? Do you find that there's benefit on top of that to just not eating at all?
Yes, because one is, it's kind of driving your car. You got the best, cleanest fuel, but you drive it, it's still going to have damage. So the GI tract is the most sensitive organ system of our body, the mucus layer. So the more you eat, the more you still damage the glycocalyx of the bowels. Now you're less damaged if you're strictly a carnivore, but the problem is so many carnivores are high protein, low fat, which is rabbit starvation and protein poisoning. And proteins break down to amino acids, which are glucogenic and ketogenic. They must be converted to acetyl-CoA in the liver via insulin in order to make fat. But before they do that, you're still circulating sugar levels that and amino acid levels that may still have damage to the glycocalyx, and they ferment. Amino acids and sugars both ferment. They feed the bacteria and yeast, which in fermentation in the gut is not good for us. So I think that one meal a day is like my most sweet spot for everyone. This idea that you need to fuel your metabolism, it just doesn't make any sense. I know when I have my big meal at night, I'm tired, which you're meant to be in order to rest and digest. I haven't really seen any proof that you should wait 3 hours or 6 hours before you sleep. It doesn't make any sense. Your bowels are always working. And when you're resting, you're now providing the blood flow to the bowels so you can take all the nutrients to the liver. Hepatic portal bloodstream goes right to the liver. Insulin from the pancreas, blood flow to the liver, which is critical in order to convert amino acids and sugars to fat. Remember, fatty acids come into the lymphatics through the thoracic duct because fat does not need to be converted to fat because it already is the only fuel of your muscle and your brains, your reproductive system also.
Nice.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about hepatogenous diabetes. I don't know if you've come across that at all.
Let's do it.
Hepatogenous diabetes. Have you heard of it?
I haven't heard that term before.
I haven't.
I had neither. Okay. Yeah. So there is a so 96% of cirrhotic patients are insulin resistant and 30% are frank diabetics. Why? Because the liver's function is to convert amino acids and sugars to fat via insulin. So as the liver function drops, insulin resistance increases. Okay? So first it's fatty liver, then it's kind of fibrotic, sclerotic liver, then it's cirrhotic liver. So all cirrhotics are skinny. They have no fat. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, just big bellies.
They have
Yeah,
ascites,
yeah.
but they have paper thin skin. They have no subcutaneous fat.
Yeah.
The reason is they can't make fat because fat is made in the liver. So if you think about it as the 24/7, 365 exposure of the liver to amino acids and sugars and the plant toxins, it causes liver cellular damage, hepatocyte damage. So now the liver cells aren't as quick at converting sugars to fat. So your overall sugar level rises in the bloodstream. What else rises in the bloodstream? Your insulin. We call that insulin resistance, correct? So is it probable, I'm an anatomical guy, why does all the blood flow to the bowels go to the liver, including the pancreatic blood flow? Because the liver's job is to make fat first. Because let's just say we were omnivores, right? If we were omnivores, sugars are not the fuel for the cells. Fat is, because a type 1 diabetic, are they fat or skinny?
Skinny.
They're skinny. Why?
They can't utilize their fat, or or can't make fat, and
they can't make fat. That is it.
Yeah.
Why can't they make fat? They have no insulin. Why can't the cirrhotic patient make fat? Because they have a dysfunctional liver. They have high insulin and high glucose levels, yet they're skinny. Well, I thought insulin's job was to put glucose in the cells. Well, how come it's not doing that? Because insulin resistance is hepatogenous diabetes. As the liver function drops, insulin levels rise because glucose levels rise, because the liver can't make the fat. And again, it's the toxins in the plants. It's the direct sugars. Remember, plant sugars are foreign sugars. So like a blood transfusion, you think about it. Our blood type is determined by a sugar coating the cell. If I give you the wrong blood type, you're going to have an inflammatory reaction, right? So if I give you plant sugars or bacterial or yeast sugars or viral sugars, you're going to have a reaction that's going to cause inflammation, damage the organ systems, including the liver. Hepatitis C virus, right? It takes down the liver, right? It's a plant, it's a sugar that causes inflammation. So hepatogenous diabetes is actually the cause of insulin resistance.
Okay. So
I'll send you a paper.
Yeah, good. How far down that road do you have to go before you start getting insulin resistance? Is it just fatty liver disease, or do you even need to get to fatty liver stages?
Don't know that answer, but I bet it's before fatty liver disease. Okay. And since the liver's job is to make fat, I mean, you buy goose liver or duck liver, you cook it, it's just like all fat. So the liver's job is to make fat. And so maybe fatty liver isn't a disease unless we see other things going on with you, right? We wouldn't have any reason to check for it unless you've got a problem, right? And so again, the liver's job is to make fat, but we don't detect it until you have something else going on, sclerosis, fibrosis, before cirrhosis. but I don't know that answer.
Okay.
My bet is in utero, since in utero, the moms are eating excessive carbohydrates, which simply flow through the placenta to the fetus. They cause children to be born overweight, obese, but the sugars are also circulating the liver, which is making fat in the fetus.
Yeah, that was a thing too. That's what, you get gestational diabetes that's associated with higher birth weight, and then mothers developing diabetes later on. I always thought that same thing. You're just feeding carbs and you're getting this sort of precocious growth. And I think that I always thought that was a contributing factor to why we're having bigger birth weights and bigger sizes and more instrumentated deliveries and C-sections and things like that, because we're supposed to, we're designed to come out of our mother, you just die. We're not like a bulldog, like an English bulldog, where we're just like freakishly bred these things to not be able to fit out of the birth canal, and so, it only happened sort of in the last sort of century. And I remember hearing people saying, it's like, well, our brains are just getting so much bigger. And so it's having trouble getting out of the birth canal. I'm like, hold on a second. Our brain size are down. We're 11% down from that before the agricultural revolution. We're not getting larger brain sizes, and that doesn't happen in 1 century. The genetic populate, or in population genetics, anyone who studied that understands that you cannot change the genetics of an entire population that quickly. It just doesn't happen. And so something else is happening environmentally.
Well, we're eating too much.
Mm-hmm.
Again, 3 to 6 meals a day is deadly. If you simply eat 1 meal a day, you're probably healthier. And you're right. The simplicity of the story is we're eating excessive plants and not enough animal fat, and we're eating too much and too frequently. And some simple things you can do even without changing what you eat, but just changing the frequency and adding a lot more fat to the diet. But gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, prematurity, fetal and maternal mortality, morbidity, all of these things are secondary plant-based, low animal fat diet, because everything you eat as a mom is going through the placenta to the baby. When you're breastfeeding, everything you eat is going through to the baby. And so before you want to get a baby, while you're pregnant, and when you're breastfeeding, and after that, carnivore is for babies. Once you stop breastfeeding, you should go to the bone, from the breast to the bone. Meat from milk from the breast to meat from the bone is really important for all of us. Our humanity relies on it. Then I bet you will actually feel like a man or a woman. You will begin to recognize that reproduction and relationships are critical. Depression, suicide, criminality will be reduced by going to our perfect human diet, or the eat like a human, which is your story, which is eat fatty meat. That's it. Simple.
Yeah. I think there's a t-shirt in there somewhere, carnivores for babies, and then like, some sort of,
we're doing it. We're doing
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Breast to bone. I like that.
Well, that's the breast to bone, or milk to meat. Again, and I think you've probably talked about this in, or others I know talked about many in Africa, they eat the blood and the milk from their animals. They let the animals eat the grass. Yeah. And we can convince people that honey and fruit is fine, but of any frequency or significant, it is not. And fruits and vegetables and honey can be contaminated with bacteria, yeast, and viruses that are some of the leading causes of disease in the globe.
Right, and especially in pregnancy as well. I mean, those always, don't eat soft cheeses or unpasteurized dairy. Get listeria and other sorts of things can be quite teratogenic to the fetus, I believe.
They're abortificants and they're teratogens. All of those things, and pesticides come from plants. Human beings think we're responsible. The plants, look around. The plants own the world. Yeah. We are fertilizer for the plants, is as simple as that. And their reproduction is like as important as ours.
Yeah.
And now we can learn to use them in ways, and if we're going to eat a plant, like do it in a way that minimize, if you're going to eat some honey or fruit or vegetables or French fries, minimize them. But the challenge is that I know of no one that's ever had an anaphylactic reaction to a ribeye steak.
Mm-hmm.
But plants, my daughter would die to an avocado and a banana. The challenge is, my partner used to eat crab, and then one day she had an anaphylactic reaction to crab. So these anaphylactic reactions can come upon us, and we don't know when or why. Shellfish, plants, fruits, fiber, vegetables, seeds, and nuts are all potentially antigenic enough that they can take us down fast. And it's the glycobiome that is the killer.
Yeah. And I think I've always thought too, I wondered about that with shellfish, is it something in their environment, the algae and things like that they're eating, maybe those antigens get mixed in, because you can certainly get those like red tide and, many other things that can get into the shellfish. They're just, filter fish, they're filter animals. They sort of get this stuff in. And so, maybe that can get in there, and maybe that's what people are reacting to. But the argument that I see, there's always this, just, pulling at threads and just, grasping at straws. What they do when you point out the different allergies and anaphylactic reactions that people get, it's to plants. And then they'll say, people get, anaphylactic reactions to meat as well. And then they'll cite that, people bit by the Lone Star tick and they have this, cross reaction, things like that. But that's not reacting to the meat. There's nothing in the meat that you're reacting to that you have a problem with. You get this, this infection that's caused a disruption in your body and your physiology, which is the point of toxins and parasites and bugs and plants. I mean, it's just absolutely just global warfare out there. And so, they're doing that, and that disrupts your body. And now you can't eat properly. And from what I understand as well, it's only certain meats. So you can still eat meats. You can still eat different meats. And it's also, it goes away in about 3 months. So this is a temporary reaction, and it doesn't make you allergic to meat for the rest of your life, or to all meats.
Well, the same thing goes with eggs and butter and cream and the meats. What is the animal eating that may be gaining? Again, think about the lectins, oxalates, and phytates that embed in our body. Well, they embed in the animal's body. But if they're eating the proper diet that they're meant to eat, but even these animals are at risk of damage and disease from the natural foods that they eat, depending on the season, the invasive plants. But you're right, the bugs, the bacteria, yeast, viruses, and other bugs contain antigenic particles that can cause it. I have a place down in Sarasota Bay, and quite commonly the red tide kills everything. The same thing can happen to us for sure. And that's why I think red fatty meat, you get the cow and you process parts of it, like the steak. Ground meat has more of a risk of being contaminated because of the risk of bacteria, yeast, and viruses contaminated in the processing. So know your processor, know your farmer. And some people can't tolerate certain meats and eggs and butter, but I think the risk is minuscule compared to the fact that the plants directly themselves have the antigens that are inflammatory to our body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Changing direction slightly, breastfeeding, Dr. Kiltz. A lot of people I know who've had babies recently have really struggled with breastfeeding. And I'm wondering if you've, I suppose it's likely going to come back to nutrition, but if you've had any success helping or coaching people to get back to breastfeeding.
Well, that's something real important, and we need to talk about that a lot more. And it's interesting, I've heard a lot of women that are doing carnivore saying their breasts are getting bigger. They're depositing the fat in the glands more naturally because they've reduced the inflammation. So if you start off with healthier breast tissue, then when you're pregnant and then deliver, your breasts are going to function more naturally. But because we're eating a plant-based diet, breasts are dysfunctional. Breast cancer is on the rise in younger women all the time. And you may have a genetic predisposition, but the genes are not the cause. And I know you've talked to Thomas Seyfried. It's our environment. The metabolic damage from a plant-based low animal fat diet, I think, is it. So those that go carnivore definitely, I think, have a better capability, a better quality breastfeeding, better quality milk, and longevity on breastfeeding for sure. So when you're before, during, and after pregnancy, you want to go carnivore, but you want to focus on the fatty meats, eggs, butter, cream, in my opinion. And then again, when you're breastfeeding, you'll improve things also. And listen, everyone's looking for the scientific study. Just start looking at the carnivore blogs and all the women. They're like, oh my God, this is happening to me. The N of one is the most important thing. And we're storytellers. We're here to tell a story. And the story is what I've experienced, what you've experienced, and what my clients have experienced, which is my community. And breastfeeding is improved. And then those kids, once they're like, they want, someone showed me a picture of a baby gnawing on the bone. And I was at Ken Berry's and Nisha's when I was in Austin, and their little baby was eating meat. And that's where we need to be giving more direction. So we have healthier babies. I had dyslexia and migraines and bowel problems as a kid. I couldn't read. I was completely incorrigible. My mother had to put my brother and I on leashes because we were so crazy, and she'd be arrested today. And so I believe will allow us all to function better at every level, looking at the carnivore lifestyle.
Yeah. That was the same thing. Carnivores for babies, so just
carnivores for babies, carnivores for moms and dads, and
we're all big babies,
brothers and sisters, all of us.
Yeah. That's the thing too. I mean, these genes existed before, they're saying it's like, well, someone has, the BRCA, genes and things like that, or the HER2 genes, all these sorts of different things. Yes, that plays a role, but those genes existed. They didn't just show up this generation. They didn't just all of a sudden just start popping up out of nowhere. They were in the population. They were in the gene pool. It's just now something in our environment is now triggering those faulty genes to now express differently and cause more and more problem. And so, I think that's very clear. There's something environmental that's influencing this, because the genes are the genes. They've been here for thousands of years or more.
You're right. And I see patients coming to me who have had breast cancer. Their mom had breast cancer. They got the BRCA gene. And I'm like, well, not everyone with BRCA gets cancer. And then they're trying not to have a child with the BRCA gene, and which I personally think is misguided, because we still think it's a genetic cause and not an environmental or a nutritional cause, as we're finding it in this. So I think that, again, as a doctor, we weren't taught these things, but we're finding them, and it's just such an eye opener. We're reading actually this week's book, like you do. Book club is Thomas Seyfried's book, Cancer's Metabolic Disorder, and that was one of the first books I read. I don't remember, a long time ago when it first came out, I was like, I never knew this. But that's when I learned about Otto Warburg and started reading his stuff. One rabbit hole to another. That's what this is about. But I'm just, again, so thankful I've fallen into this world of carnivore. But there's much more to it, because if you're ketovore and you're fasting and you focus on fat, you may be just as good. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, at least you get improvements anyway. You're going in the right direction. You're eating more. You're giving your body fat that you need. These are the nutrients that you absolutely have to have, and you're eliminating out some of the worst offenders. Absolutely.
Keto's the on-ramp to carnivore. It's the entryway. 100%. It's the key to the master class, I say.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. You got their foot in the door, and now it's just
that's and I mean all of us. I mean, I was first in the paleo world, and then I ran into keto world, and then I was like, some guy like you was like this, and he said, I eat meat, I don't eat anything else, and I don't exercise. And I was like, that one looks like for me. Now maybe something, but he wasn't sharing everything.
Yeah. And well, yeah, that was the thing. I think I'm one of the few people that just went just whole hog. Is like, nope, plants are gonna kill me. Like, I have no interest in these things, and just dump them all, and just got the whole bag in one go, which is very, very lucky. I'm very fortunate for that.
Well, and we, again, when I read The World Turns Upside Down by Richard Feynman, he said that carbohydrates are never required in the diet, and I'm like, I never knew that. Right. So plants are never required in our diet. Glucose is not the energy for our cell. The liver's function is to make fat, not to detoxify, because you and I don't know a disease that it doesn't detoxify, do we?
No.
Alcoholism.
Yeah.
I mean, alcohol is a natural product that we're supposed to drink in heavy amounts. So, but,
yeah, right. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, Dr. Kiltz,
very good.
Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know you have to head off. You're just starting your day. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. It's great. Great to see you as always. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it to KetoCon this year. It would have been great to hang out with everyone again.
You're going to be in London or in England next month.
Sheffield. Yeah.
Yeah. I may go. T and I are maybe talking about going to London and maybe Turkey next. Yeah.
What are you doing? When are you going to Turkey?
Well, we may go the week of the conference, because I've happened to have a week off, which I got a couple other conferences to do, and then I've got that week. So we're kind of toying with it. And because I know you and Sean are there, and Olivia's there. And I just, I met Rena. I don't know if you've met Rena Alawalia yet.
Well, I mean, online, I haven't met her in person.
Right.
Yet. Yeah.
But I met her in person at KetoCon, and
cool.
I met her partner, Aisha.
Yeah.
I did a quick Zoom with her this morning, and just, that's the beauty. We're meeting people around the globe. I've got to come to Australia.
You should
come down under.
Yeah, you've always got a place to stay. Absolutely. And but it's funny you said Turkey, because Elle and I actually have a wedding in Turkey the next week. So we'll be staying around and going there as well. We were thinking of going.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we were thinking of seeing some other stuff first, but yeah, then like 1 week after the conference, we're going to be in Turkey for a wedding. So that's funny that you're going to be over there.
I may be the week before, but I was thinking about coming to Chesterfield. Is that where it is? Where's
Sheffield.
the conference?
Sheffield, just outside of
London. 3 hours.
Oh, it's but Manchester. It's just I think you fly into Manchester, and then it's like half an hour out of that or something like that.
Okay, all right. So I'm playing with it. We'll see.
Yeah, we should. Well, let me know definitely if you do, and we'll get some steaks.
I'll look forward to it. I look forward. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you. Yeah, I got to get moving.
Yeah,
thanks, Dr. Kiltz.
Sorry, I hope we didn't keep you.
We'll talk again soon. I love you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.